Welcome in, everybody. It's official. The in-between Preakness and Belmont mantra this week. Jeremy Plonk, Jeff Siegel from First Bet. And Jeff, nothing's official until we say it is, but we got a couple weeks to make the Belmont Stakes official. We've got a lot to talk about, though, in the interim.
Yes, we do. And the Belmont coming up, a very interesting race, maybe more interesting than you might think when a Triple Crown is not on the line. Sometimes this Belmont gets kind of lost in the shuffle and people don't take it seriously. But I think it's coming out pretty good. And then, of course, topped by the Derby winner, Rich Strike, and trying to figure out whether he's really for real. And I got to tell you, Jeremy, he's growing on me. I think he's going to be pretty tough in that race.
Well, I got a feeling he'll be part of our 5 topics this week as we take each topic down the line on our big board, and we'll evaluate 5 topics with a little bit of a twisted opinion to them, with a look back and a look forward. So let's go to the big board for the first time this week on It's Official. We are talking about the Belmont Chatter and the big work by the aforementioned Rich Strike. Jeff, I'm going to play that work courtesy Churchill Downs right now, and we can discuss it. This was Memorial Day between races 5 and 6 on the card at Churchill. He was into the bridle early and got after it 11 and change for the first eighth of a mile on a 5 furlong breeze, where for a deep closer, he sure went pretty fast.
Yeah, he did. And that's interesting because in a Belmont, you want him to go off slow and kind of get into a galloping rhythm and then maybe kick on with it a little bit later on in the race. And then working him, it looked like they were training him to go a mile because they went off quickly. And Jeremy, it may show us that maybe Rich Strike does have a little bit of early gas if he's allowed and asked to show it. And this was a really, really good work, especially when it was by himself, because he went fast every step of the way and galloped out great.
Well, we know the Belmont is not a last to first kind of race, right? I mean, rarely does a horse like Jazzle back in 2006 come from the clouds to win it. Even horses like Creator, who were deep closers on the Arkansas Derby Trail and eventually won the Belmont in 2016, were much closer to the pace than their running lines had suggested. I think a work like this, and knowing the history that we do and the fact that he's fresh off the 5 weeks, I think you're going to see Rich Strike closer to the pace in the Belmont, certainly, than he was in the Derby.
I would think so, especially with a potential lack of pace in the race, although it may be a little quicker than we think it's going to be. But the beauty about this work was, number one, he went off pretty quick. Number two is he galloped out 3/4 and 12, 5/8 and 59. He still looked like he had plenty left and was full of energy, even galloping out 7/8. So I'm not really sure you can ask much more than this. It is unusual to see, though, a horse with a 5-week layoff going a mile and a half have only 2 works in the interim, and that's what's going to happen with Rich Strike. This was it. This was his final work, but boy, he sure looked fit to me.
We'll see if it's good enough to take on the field gathering for the Belmont Stakes as I click on the wrong button here. What I want to do is show you the field of the prospective horses for the Belmont Stakes, and here they are for the prospects. Of course, we've got Rich Strike, the Derby winner, Mo Donegal, who was the second fastest final quarter mile in that Derby. He's the Wood Memorial winner. Ness, the filly, of an interesting Grade 1 winner for trainer Todd Pletcher. Of course, she won the Ashland at Keeneland. Pletcher's had success, of course, with fillies and success overall in the Belmont Stakes. Then you've got horses like Creative Minister and We the People. Of course, Creative Minister, third in the Preakness. We the People, the horse who won the front-running sloppy edition of the Peter Pan Stakes. Skippy Longstocking, Kuchar, a horse for Windstar Farm. Barber Road, late runner from the Kentucky Derby. He also came home very fast in the Kentucky Derby. Golden Glider out of that race in the Peter Pan. And we don't know about Ethereal Road, if he's going to go in here off that nice win on the Preakness undercard against Lesser. And Howling Time could be a very interesting horse in here, Jeff. He's trained by Dale Romans, and he's coming off a win Preakness Day, but in allowance company at Churchill, pace is going to be important, and he could be part of it.
He could, because he won that allowance race, Gay Tuar, although he didn't go particularly fast. But because he won Wire to Wire, I'm pretty sure they're going to try to employ similar strategies. So the pace might not be all that fast. But what struck me about this list that you put up, there are at least a half a dozen horses in there that you wouldn't be completely and utterly shocked if they won. I mean, they're not bad. You know what I'm saying? Rich Strike, Mo Donegal, certainly. I like the filly a lot. Ness, I think she's a true 1.5 mile type filly, and I think even though she's tackling the boys. I think she'll run well. Creative Minister is coming very quickly now. He ran well in the Preakness. We the People, who knows? Maybe it rains. Maybe he gets loose on the lead. I could see him. Skippy Longstocking is a exaggerator colt that's kind of one pace, but maybe he'll go a mile and a half. Barber Road running well. Even Wayne's horse, Ethereal Road, I thought he looked good. I know he didn't beat much the other day, but I thought that was a confidence-building win. I couldn't completely throw him out, especially since it's Wayne. So it's not just Rich Strike and a bunch of horses taking a shot. This has a chance to be a pretty good race.
Yeah, where's the Tappet? Where's Tappet in the Belmont Stakes? I mean, he sired the winner in 14, 16, 17 last year with Essential Quality. He had the runner-up in 2019. He had the third-place finisher in 2018. There are no Tappets on that list, and that's an error. But I'll tell you, if you want to dig a little bit, we got 3 grandsons at Tappet. I don't know how that factors, but Creative Minister, Barber Road, and We the People, maybe 3 long shots to look at in there. They're all grandsons of Tappet, and we know the Tappets in the Belmont Stakes have just been unbelievable over the last 6, 7, 8 years. So that's a way to look ahead towards the Belmont Stakes and maybe some price players in there. Let's turn the page and go to our second topic this week on It's Official. Jeff, there was some frazzled form in California over the Memorial Day weekend. A lot of tickets were memorialized as 4 odds-on favorites went down. What in the world was going on in your backyard over Memorial Day weekend?
I wish I knew, because it's okay to get a favorite beat. I could see that, because it happens all the time.
Right.
But 4 of them in a row that all 4 look like on paper they should win, they all bombed out. The one that hurt me the most, though, was when Defunded got beat by There Goes Harvard, because I didn't like the favorites. I didn't like the odds-on favorites, and Defunded ran as well as I thought he could run in the Gold Cup, and he got beat by There Goes Harvard, who I had to check my program and say, who is that horse again? No, it was just weird. It wasn't phony paces. It wasn't off tracks. It wasn't anything other than maybe it was just one of those weird days. It's all like our weird weekends, because it was a 3-day weekend and none of the form, or very little of the form, held up. But it just goes to show you, and if you ever had to be reminded about this in horse racing, there is no such thing as a sure thing, and there certainly wasn't last weekend.
Odds-on favorites were hitting 62% according to BetMix at the meet at Santa Anita, 54% in the graded stakes coming into the weekend. And again, 4 of them went up, 4 went down. And just because I'm a nice guy and you told me this one hurt the most, let's go back and watch the Gold Cup.
Stiletto Boy has the reins shaken at him. There Goes Harvard. Royal Ship to the outside. 3/16 of a mile to go for Defunded, who leads it by a length. There Goes Harvard running a giant race and coming to him. Royal Ship, Stiletto Boy drops out. A 16th to go. There Goes Harvard is up to take the lead from Defunded. And it's There Goes Harvard to win the Hollywood Gold Cup by just over a length. Defunded was second. Royal Ship third. Stiletto Boy finished 4th.
Well, that's why you take a shot with a horse in good form, right, Jeff? He was stepping up out of the allowance ranks. He was running well in allowances. Short field, Michael McCarthy said, let's take a shot in here. And it was a successful one. My question for you is, how many times did you yell the word wire in the stretch in that?
I was watching the race at the XPTV studios at the 8th pole. So when it went by me, you could see the momentum. I said, I'm not wired too far down the road. There's no way Defunded's going to hang on. And he actually battled back a little bit. And again, Defunded did everything I wanted him to do in that race. 5-1, he made the lead. He outran the favorites. I thought this was a race ripe for an upset, because I have never trusted Royal Ship. He was the favorite. He got that off the board. He's been up and down. I just didn't know whether he could turn into a like, and he didn't.
Right.
I was really actually disappointed in Stiletto Boy, because I thought he would run better, because he just won and he trained well since then, but he was flat. And so here is a perfect opportunity. And I was hooked. This horse was hooked up on every rolling exotic I had. Pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, everything, And but if you look at There Goes Harvard, as you mentioned, Michael McCarthy put him in this race. A, he thought he would be a 1.25 mile horse. B, he'd won his last 2 races. I mean, one of them was a dead heat, but the numbers were rising. Will takes charge. They're going to get better with age. So I could see it, but did he have to improve that much? I wish he had. So that wasn't a complete shock to me, but the other races were. So I'll go that way.
Well, what about the game league? This one wrapped up the Rainbow Six mandatory payout on Memorial Day. Ocean Road from off the pace, an off the pace winner at Keeneland and Allowance Company stepped up here and ran another big one. And this was not expected. I mean, you had the heavily favored locals, and from Midwest to West, it was Ocean Road taking them down. European import now settling in nicely in the Philly Ameriturf division here in the U.S.
She's acclimating obviously very well. She actually ran in the Breeders' Cup Philly Ameriturf last November, which was just 2 races before that. She was actually 75-1 in that race. And she was 6th. It wasn't terrible, but, she never really was a factor. Won an allowance race at Keeneland, which was good. I mean, she was supposed to win that race, but it was just a first level allowance. Came back and then used that race. I was surprised she was 5-1. I thought she'd be higher than that, especially when you had, the models of Phillies going global and going to Vegas in there. But she earned the win, Jeremy. I mean, the pace was not particularly fast. They went 47-4, 111-3. They finished out a mile and 1/8 and 146-3, last 8th and 11-3, and she wasn't anywhere near the lead at the time.
Right.
Maybe Brendan Walsh has himself a real comer here. I mean, she's only had 8 starts. She's a Euro. She's a 4-year-old, supposed to get better with age. Ocean Road, that she earned that win. There was nothing flukish about this win. I just didn't see it, but it was good.
Long range goals have to be the Breeders' Cup Philly Ameriturf return. She got that win at Keeneland in April. The Philly Ameriturf and all the Breeders' Cup championships, of course, will be back at Keeneland in the fall. So interesting to see where he sends her the rest of the way. She obviously gets over top of ground turf like she got at Santa Anita. So she could go to Del Mar, where they've got some really good races like the Maybe this summer. And then you could look at, going back to Kentucky for the races at Keeneland, perhaps, to get ready for the Philly Ameriturf. A lot of options, not a lot of answers to some of those upsets, however, going into it this weekend at Santa Anita. Let's go to our third topic on the board this week. And Jeff, you want to introduce the Chad Brown of the West. Who might we be talking about here?
We're talking about Phil D'Amato, and Phil D'Amato is a fantastic trainer. And he's really done it the hard way because he was a longtime assistant for the late Mike Mitchell, who basically dealt with claiming horses. Mike Mitchell was a very active claiming trainer, and Phil was his assistant. So when Mike passed away, Phil kind of inherited the barn and basically inherited mostly claiming horses. But he reminds me a little bit of Bobby Frankel in this way, because Bobby started off the same way. Bobby was nothing more than a claiming trainer, had a horse or two. Any good horse Bobby actually ended up with or got was a horse he had claimed. Right. And so, you see horses, trainers like this, Phil D'Amato, who doesn't get any well-bred, yearlings from Kentucky like Bob Baffert. He doesn't get any Euros. Nobody's, Godolphin's not sending him any horses, stuff like that. He ends up deciding that he wants to build his stable, not with claiming horses, but with these very modestly bred Irish cheap horses. I mean, I say cheap, I mean horses that cost for like $75,000 or less. Yeah. Right now, he's the 6th leading trainer in the country, earnings of nearly $5 million. He's, he's just, his record is amazing. He actually never even started to be a full-time trainer with a big stable until 2014. So he's kind of a Johnny-come-lately. And again, he's a self-made trainer. And if you look at, here's how it's right now. You got Asmussen, Chad Brown, Brad Cox, Todd Pletcher, Mike Maker, and Phil D'Amato. That's the top 6. And he's kind of he's kind of hidden out here. Nobody really pays much attention to him. Right. Boy, is he good. He's won a Breeders' Cup race way back when, a few years back. But I'm telling you, he has won me over. I just wish that someone would give him the better stock than he's been getting, because he's making these horses. He's not getting them. He's making them. And I watched him train, Jeremy. He is a great trainer. He really is. I watch his horses breeze. He's really training. He trains just like Chad Brown does. Well, he doesn't have Chad Brown's horses, but they run for him. And one of these days, someone's going to wake up and give him some top-class horses, as it took Bobby Frankel a few years to get them as well. Put him down. He is fantastic. Phil D'Amato.
Well, he had Chad Brown-like numbers in the Shoemaker Mile when he had 3 entries in there to go after Smooth Like Straight. One of them went to the front, and it benefited him in the end.
Smooth Like Straight quickly puts away Dansimo and sets sail. Smooth Like Straight suddenly 3 lengths in front. And from the back of the field, Count Again takes up the chase. These two square off in the Shoemaker Mile. Smooth Like Straight, a 2-length lead. Count Again bearing down though, and he's right to him with a furlong left to go and goes by. Count Again. Irad Ortiz Jr. is putting on a show today as Count Again streaks home in the Shoemaker Mile. Smooth Like Straight second. Master of Foxhounds third. Haywood's Beach finished fourth.
And that was a really impressive move, Jeff, because Smooth Like Straight didn't come back to the rest of the pack. This is a case where Count Again blew by and drew off. Really impressive performance. He's a nice turf miler. I don't know if he's a Breeders' Cup winner type turf miler, but when he gets the setup and you can run down Smooth Like Straight, that puts you near the top of the American division.
No question. And here's Count Again. He's 7 years old, but he's only run 17 times. He's not some beat up old horse who's just gotten good and stuff like that. He earned a 108 buyer number in that race that we just saw, won very convincingly going away. And that puts him right in there. Now, he did have a run prior to that in the Maker's Mark Mile, and he was beaten less than 2 lengths from 6. You remember that race? They all kind of finished in a clump there. He got going late, but the blinkers were off that day. Phil kind of experimented, put him back on for this race. He was a little keener. And he had trained unbelievably well before that race, so I wasn't completely surprised that Smooth Like Straight got blown away that way, especially when you mentioned there were 3 in there that Phil had, just like, pulling out the old Chad Brown play. But one of them was used as kind of a rabbit to make sure that Smooth Like Straight wouldn't get away with soft fractions, and they went pretty quick early, 45-2. But having said that, Smooth Like Straight was outside the speed. He was settled. He had every chance.
He ran his race.
And he just got blown away. And this is the type of horse. And Phil didn't – I'm looking at the form here. Phil did not have this horse originally. He didn't get him until November of 2020. So it's not like he's had him all along.
Right.
But since then, he won the Kilroe Mile, Grade 1 race on this racetrack 2 races back. I would suggest, and I know Phil believes this, that Count Again is a real – even at age 7, he's as good as they come – among the Americans. We don't know what the Euros are going to say, but right now, Count Again, and maybe is as good a turf miler as there is in the country.
I'd like to see him in the Woodbine Mile, that one-turn race with a long stretch run at Woodbine, just to be able to uncork from the back. I think he'd be interesting in there as a potential prep towards the Breeders' Cup.
Well, he's run at Woodbine before, and your assumption is correct, my friend, because he did win a race called the Singspiel, going a mile and a quarter. In that race, and then he was in the Northern Dancer, finished 4th, and I'm not going to talk about the ride from Contreras, but we'll just say that I didn't think it was his best work. But that was way back in 2020, and that was pre-D'Amato. So that's
why I forgot.
That would be a perfect race for him because Count Again can handle that course.
I've got a 2-year limitation on things off the top of my head, so that's beyond that. Let's go to topic number 4 on our big board this week. We're talking about New York's finest new turf sprinter. Who might that be? Let's go back to the videotape from this weekend from the Paradise Creek.
The field comes for the head of the stretch, the half mile in 45 seconds. It is asymmetric. Here is Sean Sue, and here is High Front, and on the outside, Big Invasion as they come down for the 8th pole. It is still asymmetric. Far outside, Big Invasion now kicking in. Here is Big Invasion to take the lead from Asymmetric. It is Big Invasion running a big race today, winning it from off the pace under Joel Rosario. And Big Invasion won by 3.5. And the final time for the 7 furlongs, 1 minute 20 and 1/5 seconds.
Well, have talent will travel, Jeff. This horse just takes his course with him from Gulfstream to Kentucky to Churchill and here to New York. And now he'll get to settle into New York for the rest of the year in Christophe Clement's barn. Impressive 3-year-old.
He is really, really good. And I know this is not the most glamorous division in North American racing. It is over in Europe. They love the milers over there. But here, Big Invasion running against 3-year-olds. He's never been farther than 7 furlongs. That was the race we just saw in the Paradise Creek. The funny thing about Big Invasion is he broke his maiden going 5/8 and 55 in small change at Gulfstream Park. So you figure he's really, really fast. But the farther they go, the farther back he drops and the easier he wins. This is a horse who's never been farther than 7/8 for Christophe Clement, but he's by declaration of war. He's out of a mare by Curlin, second dam by Out of Place, third dam by Strawberry Road, fourth dam by Nureyev. I think he's just starting to figure things out. There's no reason why this horse won't go farther.
Right.
And I think he'll get that chance, Jeremy. And here's the other thing. He's won his last 4. And you know how grass races are. They kind of always finish in a heap, so, even the good races, because they all kind of 2-minute lick and then the last one. Big Invasion has won his 4 races by 4 1/4, 3, 2, and then 3 1/4. He's winning off by himself. And you saw the last race, he wasn't even asked. So I think, again, not the most glamorous division. No one's going to be talking about him, but Big Invasion is a really, really good colt.
We'll probably see him at Saratoga this summer and some of the turf sprint races there. And who knows? You take on the older horses in the Big Bad World, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint at the end of the season. We saw Bobby's Kitten win that race as a 3-year-old way back when, but a little different make than Bobby's Kitten, who was a router who turned back. But if this horse just stays sprinting, maybe he can take it as a 3-year-old in the Breeders' Cup Sprint ranks. Golden Pal did that last year, I believe, as a 3-year-old as well for Wesley Ward. But you got to get through Golden Pal if you want to talk about winning that division. And nobody's in a hurry to get in line for that one.
No, I actually think that Christophe is going to stretch him out before he backs him up again to see if he can go a mile and maybe even farther. There's a lot of good grass racing. I don't know if he's a 1.25 mile horse, but he's certainly he should be a miler middle distance horse. There's enough races for 3-year-old grass horses in the summer and the fall for that division. So, but the good news is he can do whatever he wants because he's got himself a great top class 3-year-old, and he got all kinds of different options to experiment with. I'm curious to see how good he's going to be by the end of the year.
Let's go to our 5th and final topic this week on It's Official. And on a somber note, we look back at the life and career of Lester Piggott, one of the world's most successful and well-known jockeys. Passed away earlier this week at the age of 86, Jeff. Certainly, I came into the racing game at a time when Lester Piggott was kind of at the absolute tail of his success and career. And we'll look at it here in a little bit. But of course, most Americans remember 1990 in the Breeders' Cup, where Piggott got the victory in the mile that year, Royal Academy. Your memories of him going back deeper than that, as you have such a strong sense of the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Well, I remember watching, of course, we didn't get many opportunities to watch European racing back then. We just didn't. They weren't being televised. There was no internet. I mean, you might get lucky and see something that would show him. But what struck me about Lester, apart from his incredible record, he won the Epsom Derby 9 times, won almost 5,000 races, rode for almost 50 years, was his style of riding. And we, growing up in the States and watching the local jockeys, the shoemakers and those kind of riders, you'd get a view of how Lester rode, and you would scratch your head and say, how in the world are horses running for a guy who looks like this? I mean, we're watching, our riders, they're down, they're
right
down, very smooth with the horse. And then you see Lester, who's way back in the saddle and flailing away like, and then I remember Pebbles when she won in 85 the Breeders' Cup, and Pat Emery came over and he was like Lester multiplied by 2. How do horses run for these guys? But
let's take a look back and see how Royal Academy ran for Lester Piggott
on this horse.
All right, let's take a look back.
Lady Winner is in behind a phalanx of horses with nowhere to go. Royal Academy and Lester Piggott are 6 lengths off the lead, but they're launching their rally now as they come down to the final furlong. It's all Greek to me as a short lead, expensive decision, battling back, mark of distinction. Royal Academy is thundering down the center of the turf course, and Steinlen is 5th. They're coming down to the finish. Lester Piggott flailing away at Royal Academy. It's all Greek to me toward the inside. Here's the wire, head bobbing finish. Royal Academy does it, and the living legend out of retirement, 54-year-old Lester Piggott pulls off the upset here.
And Jeff, he was out of retirement. It was a controversial time in his life. Lester Piggott had been in prison for tax evasion in England, He got out of prison and got back into training. It was almost 3 years since his previous ride. He'd only been back riding for a few weeks by the time he went to the Breeders' Cup and won that race. Strange times indeed, and in a different era, right? I mean, that would have been covered completely different in 2020. A jockey coming out of prison like that on the comeback. It was still a big story. Obviously, it was in Tom Durkin's race call, coming out of retirement. Different ball game pre-internet than post-internet on how he would have been covered, but a phenomenal comeback to get to Breeders' Cup level. And like you mentioned, he's way back here, and it's just a completely different look than what we're used to seeing. The Ramon Dominguez overhead and Pigot's back here. I guess there's a lot of ways to win a horse race, and he may not have been the most fundamental rider of all time, but one of the most successful.
Well, he was the champion jockey 11 times between 1960 and 1982, had 30 classic wins in England. So whatever he was doing, it worked for sure. But the funny thing is, you watch him and you watch some of the old European riders of his era, and I mentioned Pat Emery, and nobody rides that way again. They're all looking like Flavien Prat now from France, who looks as American as he ever were. And none of these Europeans, the first jockey I ever saw who looked like an American rider during that era was Freddie Head. He in France. And I remember watching Freddie ride some of the French horses. I'm saying, that guy looks like a normal jockey. And eventually all the European riders kind of, they were emulating Lester. Why wouldn't you be? He was the most famous and most successful jockey for 50 years. But they got away from that. And now you watch all these European races and they all look like American riders, which tells me that maybe Lester was the outlier there. But again, nobody was more successful than him. And it's weird because when I read that he had passed away, I hadn't realized that he was 86 years old because, that just tells me that I'm getting old more than anything else. But 86 years old, and he last rode when he was in the mid-50s, and he rode Nijinsky. I remember that back in 1970. And anyway, I'm sure that the people who knew him, and I didn't, but people who knew him had a lot of fond memories of him, not only with his success, but as a competitor as well.
The great Frankie Dettori with him here. This is from Frankie's Twitter page. The respect from the generations. And you talk about, the European riders look like American riders. Now, Frankie Dettori transferred his game from Europe to the U.S. maybe better than anybody has in history. And, you see the generations and the respect across there. Again, that from Frankie's Twitter page posting after the passing of the great one of the great jockeys of all time, Lester Piggott. So that's going to wrap up our 5 topics this week. We're going to finish on a salute to Lester Piggott. No bonus topic this week, Jeff. Next week, I'm going to be out of town for some stuff. We will not have an It's Official during Belmont Stakes week, but in 2 weeks, we will be back to recap the Belmont Stakes and talk about all the hot topics. So you get a week off next week just to start handicapping the Belmont. Draw day will be a week from today on Tuesday for the Saturday card at Belmont Park. So look forward to seeing you in this space in 2 weeks, but plenty of handicapping to do between now and then.
Yeah, it's going to be a great card. We'll be doing a lot of our work online, actually. So check it out at expressbet.com and santanita.com and, of course, xbtv.com. So no It's Official next week, but I'll have everything that I need to say on paper, and it's going to be a great card. Flightline will be running that weekend. Can't wait for that on the undercard. So it's going to be a great card. Great Belmont, hopefully. And so we'll be not on video, but we'll be online. And so check us out next week.
Let's review this week's 5 topics. The Belmont chatter, including the big work. Jeff thought that perhaps the speed shown in the workout from Rich Strike might indicate he might be a little bit closer to the pace, perhaps, in the Belmont Stakes. The frazzled form in California, where we saw Memorial Day weekend produce 4 odds-on losers in graded stakes races. The new Chad Brown of the West, Phil D'Amato, New York's finest new turf sprinter, as we brought into the show for the first time, Big Invasion, an impressive 3-year-old from Christophe Clement's barn. And we remember the great Lester Piggott, who passed away earlier this week. Those 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel said so on behalf of everybody at First Bet and all the racing fans out there. We look forward to seeing you in a week's time, 2 weeks' time on It's Official. Be sure to check out the racing action this week and send it in with Express Bet and First Bet. Good luck, everybody.